Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Born in 103 podcast. This one is quite the special episode of the podcast. We have, of course, myself and Eric, as always. I don't know if we'll ever do an episode where there's not both of us here, but this time we have the one and the only Aaron Davis from the University of Georgia. What years did you play there?
So I was there from 2013. My first day was like June 1st. I remember I graduated from high school at like May 28th, and then I was on campus at UGA June 1st. So I was there from June 2013 all the way to January 2018 when the national championship was my last time. Yeah.
Okay. So so I mean, everybody that's listening and watching might get this from the podcast, but Aaron's a pretty humble guy. But I just want to say, like, in case you don't know who Aaron Davis is, you walked on a UGA, right?
hmm
And you walked on, you redshirted. I went and watched the video. It was something that was produced by Georgia
hmm
Sports or something like that. And you started like almost every game you were available for. You started all of them, right? So one of the more remarkable walk-on careers in UGA history, I think, at least to me. And this dude right here, he's played in two, I think, the most entertaining college football games I've ever seen. So, like, one being the Rose Bowl with Oklahoma, where you won in overtime.
hmm
And then, depending on who you ask, you should probably also be a national champion.
hmm
Because it seemed to me that Tyler was on sides, but
Hey.
we're not going to talk about that right now. But so, yeah, so I don't think there's a better person to sort of ask the questions and get the opinions on the state of I call it big time college sports, big time Division One college sports right now, because you've literally experienced everything there is. Right, you went from getting hurt in high school to not having the scholarship offers because of the injuries. Like coaches were interested, they found out you were hurt, and then next thing you know, they're rescinding offers or whatever it
hmm
is. So you went from that to literally the national championship game. So you've experienced like a lot of the spectrum there is for a college athlete. And we've had these conversations before, but we're going on record right now with the podcast. So I think it would be a good one.
I definitely agree. I mean, it's been a wild ride for me. Very interesting story. I don't know, like you said, kind of a decorated background, decorated accomplishments that I've had. Um, but I don't necessarily brag on those or talk about those as much. I let other people kind of bring light to that. But when I do see some disrespect out there, I will step up to the plate at it.
Yeah, that's good. Like you gotta know yourself, right? And you know it. You don't have to say it because other people say it. Like literally just now, I just told people.
Mhm.
But it should be good. Eric, do you have any initial questions before we get into sort of the topics that we have regarding what I think is the scam of big time Division One college sports?
No, I think we should just get right into it.
All right, cool. So I want to say sort of what brought me to think about doing this episode, and it was the recent, basketball Division One college championship
Mhm.
or the whole tournament, right? Both the men and the women's. And Eric, I don't know if you saw this, Aaron, you might have saw it, but the sort of the disparity between the women's weight room and
Mhm.
the men's weight room was really
Yeah,
something that kind of
I think
got me
everyone
interested
saw it.
again. Yeah, if you didn't, basically what happened was the men's side of the national tournament, they had like fully decked out weight room, like all the machines, all the weights necessary to really like get a D1 program in there and let them be able to do their work while away from home in their facilities. But for the women, it was like literally a set of weights you could buy at Walmart for like $15,
Yeah.
and that was their weight room with like a yoga mat or something like that. It was completely ridiculous. So I was like, man, like the NCAA once again showing that they really don't care about
Yeah,
the athletes, right? Like they care about the money side of
yeah,
it because they showed that with the disparity. So
yeah.
it
Because
just got me all riled up again.
that's what was going in when I saw that was obviously from an economic standpoint, you see how much money the men's tournament brings in, and it's like, yeah, they want to make sure that they're taken care of, but on the same note, you can't like totally disregard the women's tournament to the point where you're seeing what the men have and what the women have, and then that leads to all this backlash with like all the pros and all, even celebrities, even regular people like us, just like being like, yeah, this is messed up, dude. You know,
Yeah, it was pretty
like
bad.
I get why they wanted the men to have like the big facility, but you can't like do that to the women like that. You can't do them that dirty like that.
It's it's literally a Title IX violation.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be equal. If it's not equal, then you
Hmm.
got, a problem on your hands. But I mean, I'm happy that the women's players sort of spoke out and said something about it. I mean, why wouldn't they? Like, there's nothing they could do with the weights they had.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just sort of got me interested in wanting to talk about this a little bit more. And for those that don't know, I actually wrote like a 100-page paper on this very topic. I wouldn't call myself not an expert, like knowledgeable on it, because I never played D1 college sports, but Aaron has. So
Mhm.
Aaron has a lot of things to say. So we could supplement a lot of different, where he has experience, I might not. Where I've like done the reading, he might not have because he's lived it. So it's not like he has to. But yeah, we're gonna talk about it today.
Yeah, I think you guys brought up some great points. I mean, that had to be a violation. And I am happy that the women kind of spoke up for themselves for so long. I think in all levels of sports, it was a lot of, hey, these are how things are. These are how things gonna be. You're just gonna have to deal with it. And now we're seeing a ton of different athletes saying, hey, this is not right. Or I care about this issue. I'm gonna bring light to it. And so they called them out and they checked them, and the NCAA responded promptly. Um, which they had no other choice. But it should have never gotten to that point. You think about all the different,
Yeah.
ways that college sports brings in money. It doesn't hurt at all for them to kind of spread that out, even if the women aren't making as much money than the men's sports. But at the same time, I mean, I've seen some things in the past couple months that have kind of shed some light on some of the disparities. Like I believe it was Lexi Brown. She plays in the WNBA. She won the I Am Athlete podcast, and she had a great time talking about the fact that um, a lot of the opportunities that you know could be out there, they're just not given to the women in sports. And so, if you look around, I mean, I saw maybe like a list of the top 10 or top 20 like social media influencers for the NCAA tournament, and it included a list of the men and the women. And like if it was like 10, like 7 out of the top 10 were women. So it's like I don't think that's a surprise when I look on like Instagram or Twitter or something like that. Most of the time women have like higher followers than men actually have. So it's like, women are in a position to where they could capitalize on some of the influence they have on social media if they were given the chance. And so, I would love to see for that to happen. I would love to see for other like big corporations and things like that get involved to where just, give them a chance. I mean, corporations, they throw out money all the time for things that end up failing. Like
Yeah,
what's the big problem of giving them chance for the women in their sports?
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the corporations have to get behind it, like they've gotten behind all the men's basketball, college football, that sort of thing. Because if you look at a program like, well, there are a lot of women's programs now that are pretty notable.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously everybody knows UConn. Like
Mhm.
UConn basketball is something most people will want to see, but the people that would go and say, well, nobody wants to watch like women's basketball, which I don't think that's true.
That's a
But
lie.
I mean, if you really if you love basketball, right? Women's basketball is it's pretty good. But like the UConns, the Stanfords, now the Arizonas, like those programs, like people want to see those programs. I watched the national
It was
championship
great.
for women's basketball. Yeah, it was good. And that's not to say I watched all the men's tournament because I only watched like the national championship game. But that's probably because like I have these feelings of like these guys, these girls, like the NCAA is ripping them off, right? I went back and I looked at the highlights of the Rose Bowl game against Oklahoma, and I'm like, do you see all this? I texted Eric this. I said, do you see all this talent on the field that the NCAA is like getting for free, pretty much?
Mhm.
It was like Nick Chubb's on the field, Baker Mayfield's on the field, Sony Michelle's on the field.
Thanks for bringing up all
Is
those
it?
brownies.
Hmm.
Yeah, a bunch of Browns on the field.
Mhm.
Eric is a Browns fan,
Okay.
so
Okay.
so all these guys, all these people that are making all this money now, the NCAA said, you know what, give us at least, was it 3 years? You have to be a junior to declare for the draft.
Mhm.
Give us at least 3 years of your football career, regardless of if you get hurt or not, and we'll put you on a pedestal, right? But at the same time, you can't make any money. We make all the money, we get all the sponsorships. You can't sign any autographs, you can't get money from any jerseys of yours like with your number on it that sell, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like it just seems ridiculous to me. Like it just like sounds ridiculous. So
Yeah, I think they hide underneath the amateur tag. In all actuality, I mean the jobs that the athletes are required to do are, as close to professional as you can get. I mean, I can't comprehend how, if I'm a student who doesn't play a sport, I can work, like a side job and get money from that, and there's no issue, or, I could work at the dining hall or something like that. But or, hey, I made a great relationship with my professor or anyone that's in the town that I go to college. And, hey, we can go out and enjoy a beer or, grab dinner together and they can cover the tab. But if an
mhm.
athlete does that, all of a sudden, I'm suspended for 4 games because somebody paid for me to get a $10 pizza. Like it doesn't make very much sense to me. But that's the system that a lot of the athletes are trying to change right now.
Yeah, it's just I think I wrote something similar to that in my paper, right? And Aaron, you had a big part in my IS too,
Hmm.
so thank you again for that. I know I told you before,
Mhm.
but you really informed a lot of it. So when you say like you said a lot just now, so let's like piece it apart, right? The amateur thing, I full heartedly agree with you, right? If you go to a, and this is my opinion, Eric, you might disagree. If you go to a big D1 school, so say like if it's basketball, right? If you go to Kentucky or Duke or name another like big D1 basketball
Kansas.
program, or for Kansas, or for football, UGA, Alabama, um, out west like Oregon, like those facilities are pretty much like professional facilities.
Hmm.
Like you have everything you could possibly need, including staff, like people that are assigned just to take care of you as an athlete, right? And that's like something you see at the NFL level. And some, I don't know how true this is. I saw the LSU facility they recently finished, and it's like I'm sure like I saw the Cavs locker
Hmm.
room. The LSU locker room is better than the Cavs
Hmm.
locker room. Just like just to tell you, just be straight up, it is. So it's one of those things where it's like you tell them they're amateurs, or you're supposed to be an amateur, right? And people have this conversation all the time, like, could the best Alabama team beat the Jags or
No.
something like that? I don't know how true that is. Probably not, because those are grown men in the NFL. But it's something that we do, like we have those conversations all the time where we're like, are they really amateurs? It seems like they do this for a job, like it's their job. It pays for your education, like you want to do this for a living. And you're doing it at such a high level where it's like, I don't know if you're an amateur. But then I wanted to ask you also, you kind of touched on it too, about like being afraid to break the NCAA's rules,
Hmm.
like their bylaws, like being constantly afraid. I think Adam is one of our friends from Worcester. He played on the football team. I think didn't Adam say he technically couldn't do fantasy football or like
Yeah, he
whatever it
couldn't.
is
He couldn't do anything for money.
Hmm.
He couldn't
because
like
he was
do
an
fantasy
NCAA
football for
athlete.
money because he was an NCAA athlete. Yeah, he
That's
could
just
do
like
fantasy football. I think if it was free, but he told us not to tell anybody. But
well, too late now. We're on the podcast about it, but it's
well, he's
like that's just
graduated, so I
the
don't think it matters.
yeah, it doesn't matter now. But that's just a regular thing. Like somebody can't buy Aaron a pizza because he so happens to play football for Georgia. Like that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Like he's not going to Georgia based off a pizza.
Hmm.
Like nobody told Aaron like if you come to UGA, I will buy you a pizza every month. Like nobody said that, right? So it's just one of those things that don't make sense. But do you have any other like I don't know examples of people on the team that were like just flat out afraid, like didn't want to do anything because they didn't want to get suspended or something like that? Because I remember I was telling Eric before we started, like Todd Gurley got in trouble for signing
Hmm.
autographs or something like that. So is there any other examples of that that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head of the coffin. Like it's. I think it's almost it's uniformly almost everybody. I mean, we go through so many compliance meetings to try to educate on us on what we can and can't do. But even then, I mean, you sit through a meeting and they tell you different things, and it's tough to absorb everything, all the different laws and things like that in 1 hour or however long that we sit in those meetings. And so you're out, and just certain things that you don't even think about. Like for me, the first time I was able to participate in the NCAA bracket challenge was when I graduated. Like you can't even fill out a bracket. Then and it's literally one of the most fun things to do is to go on your ESPN account, fill out a
Yeah.
bracket, see how you match up versus everyone else in the world. And you can't even do that. You can't participate in fantasy sports, and it's not even specific to your sport either. So I can't do it for basketball. I can't do it for baseball. I can't do any of that kind of stuff. And so, it's just situations to where everyone is, constantly, watching our backs. If someone does us a favor, like sometimes you have to like actually I've been in situations where me and my roommate, we've had to turn down an offer for someone to do something for us because we're like, we don't know if this is a violation. If this gets back to us, we could be suspended for 2 games, 3 games. And it's like, I don't even think there's like a minimum amount. Like, there's not even say, hey, if you exceed $100, $200, then you're subject to this. But anything under than that, you're fine. Like you can't even do it that way. And so there is countless examples that pretty much almost every student athlete can look to and say, hey, um, I'm not even gonna go through with this, or if I go through with this, I'm not telling anybody because the slightest thing could risk my entire season.
But that's like, and it's that's accurate, right? But if you think about big corporations, right? So they have, I guess they have a policy or something in the law that says you can give gifts like to other like whether it be employees or somebody you're trying to court for like a contract or something like that in the business world, but it can't exceed like $20.
Mhm.
Other than that, like if it's higher than that, it's like against the law. But if it's lower than that, you're fine. There's nothing like that for NCAA. It could be like, I'm guessing it could be like a Snickers or something like that. Somebody buys you a Snickers,
Mhm.
it's an issue, right?
I mean,
These are just no. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna say, I mean, it was so bad. I remember my first couple years, just the whole decision of, there was a decision on what is a snack. So I don't know if you guys know about this, but like,
I
my
don't.
first couple years, teams weren't even allowed to kind of provide you. They could only provide you a certain amount of meals per day, and other things that they could provide you had to be what the NCAA denoted as a snack. So like, during the bowl games, we would eat like, however many meals, but I mean, these guys, we're burning thousands of calories based off practices and, just high metabolism. So, if you eat your last meal at 6 o'clock, it may be 8, 9 o'clock where you're hungry again. So you're like living off, it was like Slim Jims, um, like
Oh man.
crackers, maybe like some like, I don't know, just they called them permissibles, and so the permissibles were the only things you were allowed to get. And then by the time I got to my last year, those things eventually changed due to like student athletes stepping up and say, hey, a lot of these guys are hungry. Like, can we not do something about this? But yeah, that was just the situation you were under, and so, like I said, you're always walking on a tightrope to be at risk of NCAA violations.
But that's just the. It's not necessarily hypocritical, but it's like the insane part of it. So they say you can't really do anything,
Hmm.
right? But play your sport and go to class, especially if you're like on a scholarship or
Hmm.
something, right? You can't get a job because you don't have enough time. And we're going to talk about that too, like the life of a D1 college football player. But like you can't do much else because you got practice in the morning, you got practice in the afternoon, you got class in between that, you got to do homework, that sort of thing. So you can't get a job, but you also you can't get money from other people. I
Hmm.
mean, who was allowed to like give you money? Like family, was that it, or not even then?
Yeah, I mean, if you had family and then you had to have like, if it was a friend, like you're basically under the discretion or the arbitration of the NCAA for them to decide, is this person like a long term friend for you? So like if I knew somebody who was essentially almost like a family member for me, you would have to prove this person is like, has been in your life since you were like 3 years old, so
Oh
that
my
they could
god.
give,
That's
so if they
nuts.
sent you some money or something like that, you weren't under any trouble. But other than that, that's just how it was. Yeah.
So it's, and we can talk about, we're going into two pieces here where it's kind of like the new name, image, and likeness
Hmm.
rules that they're trying quote
Hmm.
unquote to come up with, and then also like the life of a college football player. So like, let's do the nil rights first because I think that's really interesting. So in terms of, and I have my own thoughts about it. Eric, do you know like kind of where like the direction it's going, right? With the
Yeah.
nil rights. Okay. So the NCAA, this was last year. So they announced this in the middle of me writing my paper. I went and talked to my advisors, and I was like, "Oh, they're going to solve this problem like as soon as I'm almost
Hmm.
done writing this paper." But that's beside the point.
Hmm.
They announced that they were going to try to look at the bylaws in terms of instituting name, image, and likeness. What's the word? I guess like opportunities for student athletes to make money off
Hmm.
themselves, basically what any other student would be able to do. So like me as a regular student, if I like, got famous on TikTok or something, I could sell, whatever it is, like merch and
Yeah.
things like that. College athletes can't do that. So what it seems to me is that the reason why the NCAA has been delaying this so much is the fact that they're trying to figure out how to make it to where they still get something, right? Instead of just saying like, athletes, you can sell autographs, you can sell jerseys, like you can sell your Rose Bowl ring, your national championship ring, that sort of thing. You can do all that stuff, but they're trying to figure out how they can cut themselves in
Hmm.
and make it make sense for them. So Aaron, how do you feel about, you're no longer an athlete, so it doesn't necessarily apply to you now, but if you were there now or back then and this was coming about, like how would you want it to look? I guess is the question.
I think first and foremost, I mean, I love the idea of kind of like a free market as far as for the student athletes. That'll really kind of get some perspective on certain players. Where I mean, I personally feel like a lot of these guys come in and do the social media and rivals and ESPN and 24/7, giving these guys stars in sixth and seventh grade. um, you know, they might have some false senses on, how important they are to the actual world compared to how much they value themselves. And so this will allow somebody to say, hey, I'm not Todd Gurley. I can't, if when I do my autograph signing, two, three people show up, but when Todd does his, 10,000 people are outside. And so you'll get some of that, but I also love the ability for people to kind of, build their own brands. Like, I mean, we talk about all the time how, you want an athlete. Well, most athletes don't want to necessarily be defined by their sport or just simply defined by the school that they attend. They want their own identity. And so, if I play on the football team, yeah, that's one side of me, but I could be, really interested in computers and something like that. So if I want to start,
Yeah,
or if I, look at how many people are doing like streaming on video games. Like if I grow my presence on Twitch and
yeah,
in my free time, I can stay up and stream, me playing video games. I can grow my own presence and I'm able to receive donations and gifts from people who just want to, come and hang out with me. And, that could be due to me having a great personality, which is absolutely, independent of what I do on the football field. So, um,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's necessary. It's long overdue. I think it's gonna be a mess before it actually gets good, but it'll be good for the players to actually, benefit from the fact that they're not simply attached to whatever school they are, even though going to a certain school can help build your own brand. So I love that the players are gonna be able to experience that, and it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
yeah. So one quick question: do you still stream, or are you like not streaming right now? You don't have the time.
I mean, I to be honest, I have the time. I mean, I play a lot of video games. I definitely wouldn't stream as long as some of these professional YouTubers do. Um, but I just
No, yeah, God. Fuck.
yeah, I I just kind of play with my friends. I don't really stream anymore.
Yeah. So I think and this is obviously not the point of this podcast, but there was, I think the dude, his name is Ludwig or something like that. Then he streamed for like 24 straight days, like on
I
and
don't
off or
even know,
something like
dude.
that.
Crazy.
I think he broke Ninja's record. This, nah, nope, I can't do
Yeah,
that.
fuck
I'm not
that.
getting paid enough. But yeah, it's like one of those things where like if you were like on the football team and you just said, let me leverage this and like go stream on Twitch or something like that, and I can probably get, 200, 300 people in here to come watch me play Warzone or something like that.
Mhm.
Like if you did that and then the NCAA still said like no money will be given to you at all, you could have all those people in there and none of them could like donate, none of them could like subscribe, that sort of thing. That's just, it's ridiculous.
I agree, and
Absolutely
there
ridiculous.
are options for that. Like I don't understand why you couldn't have something like this if they were really that concerned about it. Why couldn't you have something like to where the money sits in the escrow account, and you know over the time, I'm kind of building up my money, and then I've heard the idea like, hey, once you graduate, you can get your money. Um, and so it's like,
Hmm.
once I'm finished with school, the brand I was able to build for myself, I can build on that instead of having to, just now finally seeing proceeds when I finally decide to leave college. I don't
Yeah.
see why that wasn't proposed before, or couldn't have been enacted before they started this. But hopefully, we'll see something of the sort soon.
So, Eric, and I'm sorry, I'm asking a bunch of questions
No,
because I
you're
think
fine.
it's interesting. So, I want to talk about, and I'm still going to get to like the life of a college football player
Hmm.
or a D1 college football player because we know what a D3 college football player looks like. We've seen
Hmm.
Adam before. Um, but so like college coaches, right? So you were there with Kirby, right?
Hmm.
So would you say, and I've seen like, plenty of examples of like, say Coach Cal, right? Calipari,
Hmm.
where it seems like he really cares about his
Hmm.
players, but in reality, and I'm asking you this, you didn't play college basketball under Coach Cal, but for your coaches, like people on the staff, like would you say that they care as much about your situation as they portray to the media? So like, do they care about guys having to eat Slim Jims and noodles at 11 o'clock at night when they're hungry, or is it kind of like, I'm doing this because I'm a D1 college coach and they pay me a lot of money to win national championships? Like, how does it shake out?
I think everyone's experience will probably be a little bit different, even with people being on the same team. But I do feel like for me, I had the pleasure to be underneath Coach Rick and Coach Smart. I think
Okay.
coaches when they recruit you, they definitely are invested in you. So it's like both of them, they always wanted to do as much as they could to help out, but they just know they can't break the rules. And so I think from my experience, I think what the coaches say, you know, is real. You do have to understand that, obviously the coach is still attached to the program. And so, ultimately his loyalties
Hmm.
belong to the university. And so, he may say one thing and then might not exactly be able to hold up, how he planned. And so that kind of thing happens. And things change over time. But I think, in heart, coaches do kind of want the best for their players, and because ultimately that's how you get the good ones to actually come there. I mean, if you're making a whole bunch of promises and not able to keep them, that word gets around, and next thing your recruiting classes are going down, or someone just decides to go somewhere else just because they've heard of the reputation you have. So I don't think it benefits a coach ever to be firm in that type of mindset. But I do think for the most part, coaches
Hmm.
do want to pour into the student athletes, because ultimately, you become somewhat of a family, and those relationships. Hopefully, you keep over for the rest of your lives. Like I still have Coach Smart's number. I could reach out to him. Whenever I needed to, and I'm sure as busy as he is, he'd find a way to get back as soon as he could.
Hmm. Well, that's good to hear because I don't want to be cynical about all of it. Like,
Mm.
where like literally everything's just against the student athlete, but that's good to hear. So, what about like, and I don't think you never experienced this, but like a situation where say you get recruited by a
Mhm.
coach and you might have like talked to people that have gone through this. Like you get recruited by a coach, you're there for like a year, coach leaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got a job somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else, like pays better money. So like there is sort of like a free agency in terms of the coach's like ability to go to
Mm-hmm.
different schools and things like that and earn more money. But in terms of a college athlete, so say like you request a transfer, like to be in the transfer window or however that works, right? People come at you, they're like, why is he leaving? Like he's afraid of
Mm-hmm.
competition, he want to go somewhere else, like that sort of thing. I think the people said that about was it Fields? They
Yeah.
said that about Fields,
Yeah.
Re-
right? They said that about
Mm-hmm.
Burrow, obviously.
That's,
But it's sort of
didn't
like
they say that
the
about Jalen
coaches can
Hurts
do
too?
it.
Yep.
Yeah, it hurts too. It's like the coaches can do it. They can leave when they want to be out. Like they're paying me more money. I'm sorry, I gotta go. But the athletes, like they decide to go somewhere. The public's like, you need to stay at UGA. You need to stay at Alabama. Like that sort of thing. How do you feel about like what it is, like in terms of player free agency or transfers for college, as opposed to like what you think it should be?
I think it's hypocritical. I understand the intuition behind it, and I had the pleasure of being um, UGA's SEC representative when it came to this, and so I've sat in on meetings with two people from each SEC school, and we kind of talk over these things with the commissioner, Greg Sankey, who I think he does a phenomenal job, and he's kind of explaining some of the thought process. I think he says like graduation rate is a really big thing for him, and so players up and leaving, no matter if you're making straight A's or you're barely passing with C's, you transferring is going to, on average, add, at least a semester to you graduating. Ultimately, he wants, student athletes to be able to still graduate um, whichever university they want to attend, and being successful in the rest of life, because we all know that small percentages of student athletes actually make it to the professional level, and then it's even harder to make it to that level and remain there. And so, I think I understand that, but I still see there's hypocritical element to it, because, I love Coach Tuck. He was the DC when I was here, the defensive coordinator when I was here. He's my favorite coach that I've ever had in college. But he came from Bama to Georgia to Colorado to Michigan State, all within like two years, 3 years, and so it's like coaches are able to say, hey, this is a better opportunity for me and my family. I want to jump ship, and there's no waiting period for them. There's no limit to that. These contracts, they just get bought out, and these coaches, move on. And so you do have a free agency almost element to it when it comes to coaches. But for players, all of a sudden I'm frowned upon for, deciding that, hey, I'm from Georgia. Oregon really appealed to me. I want to go out to Oregon, but then I realized, I'm kind of homesick, and I want to move back
Hmm.
home. Or maybe I've seen situations where I think the guy, he played tight end here at UGA, and then he transferred to Illinois, and then because of his sick grandfather, and all of a sudden that waiver doesn't clear. So it's like who's deciding how these waivers get cleared? Who's to say for each person's situation? And so that's something that I don't think is right. And I think just recently, 2 days ago, they kind of finally fixed that to say, hey, you're allowed one transfer, free of charge. You don't have to wait. But after that, then there'll be a waiting period. And so I think that's a nice compromise for someone who, is ultimately trying to make a decision when you're 17, 18 years old. A decision that's going to affect the next 4 years of your
Yeah.
life, that will eventually set up the rest of your life. And so making that decision, someone could realize they made a mistake. Think of how many people sign on at a job, and then within a year they realize, I've made a mistake, I don't want to be here. You could jump ship easy, but I think this just gets back to the point where they view the student athletes as an amateur, even though, I mean, every part of the business is operated like it's on a professional level. And so those are discrepancies that need to be changed, and slowly and surely they're actually being worked out. So that's encouraging to see.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, it's like human issues, right? You mentioned the guy whose grandfather was sick, so he decided he needed to go back, to closer to where he was
Hmm.
from. to be able to help out, and then the NCAA just said no, like sorry, you can't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous to me. It really is. Let me see. Oh yeah. So in regards to, you mentioned a little bit about graduation
Mm,
rates, and in terms of your experience as a college football player at UGA, not many people can say that they played college football at
mhm.
UGA. So in terms of going to class, still being a human being, having a social life, that sort of thing, having to go to sometimes 2 practices a
Mm.
day, that sort of thing. Would you say that it like significantly helped like prepare you for the real world, or is it just like that's how it was at UGA? My real life is not like that. Like, I guess life after UGA is not like that, right? It's not as packed in. It's not as like unavailable. Does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
that makes sense. I think UGA, from what I've heard, they add a little bit more structure to the student athletes than maybe some of the other schools. But I think it's very beneficial to kind of learn that discipline because once you leave your respective sport and go, if you make it to the professional level, then it's going to be almost or nearly the same kind of structure. But if not, then you move on to the real world, get a corporate job, or start your own company or something like that. You kind of need that discipline. And so I think you know
Hmm.
almost anything I've seen in the real in my other endeavors is like it's almost a step down from what I've had to endure when I was playing college sports. And so I think that definitely prepares you. It's gonna be different, it's gonna be new. Like for me, like the world was moving so much slower when I wasn't a college athlete. Like you know when I was a college athlete, I had my schedule was pretty much packed out and set every single day. And so I had somewhere to be, somewhere to
Hmm.
go at all times of the day, and I had that structure in place. And I really didn't have to think about it. It's like it's okay, I wake up at this time, and I get back to my dorm at this time, and that's it. But when you step out to the real world, it's like everything is, people don't move as fast. And so it's an adjustment. But I
Yeah.
think it's the college athlete lifestyle, as vigorous as it is, it prepares you for anything you want to do next, besides like getting into like the military or something like that, to where it's like you feel like you got it under control.
So Eric, just like a little anecdote. So we met at CBRE,
Hmm.
right? He was working there when I did my internship there. You were there for like a year, right, or like half a year, or something like that, before I got
Yeah, at
there.
the time I'd been there for about like yeah, about a half a, yeah, because I came in April, so really just like 3 or 4 months or so.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So shorter than that. I think I only seen this man late to work like one time. Like literally, I would get there towards the latter half. I'd get there at like 7:30, 7:45 because I need to leave early to beat the traffic because Atlanta traffic is terrible, right? But I think I've only seen this man late like once or twice, maybe not even that. So he's speaking the truth about UGA discipline. I was about to compare it to like boot camp, but it's probably not that bad.
Mm.
But still, the point stands. Just so you know. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like your social life though, for a college athlete, for a big time D1 college athlete, you mentioned before you had to turn a lot of stuff down, like
Mhm.
you couldn't do a lot of stuff, especially people like offered to pay because you didn't have any money because you couldn't work because you were a football player or
Mhm.
whatever. We talked about that already. It's so infuriating. But at the same time, did you find that like, well, this might be an obvious question to answer, but like people wanted that time with you because you were Aaron Davis on UJ's football team and you didn't like have that time. So like a lot of the college experience, I mean, me and Eric can speak to this because we had a more traditional, well, not traditional, but like average college experience where like you go to class and then once you're done with class, like you're just kind of bumming it out for
Mhm.
the rest of the day. Especially our senior year, well before COVID, but
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
didn't
say.
really have the time to, yeah, you didn't really have the time to do that. So like we'd get done with class and it's like you want to go get something to eat or you want to go like play some basketball because we got all this free time, we
Mhm.
don't
One
have
of those
any homework.
sheets.
Go to Sheets, yeah. Like, would you say that you had that or you didn't have that?
I would say you almost have to schedule your social time as well. For most guys, the weekend would be the time where you could get, a little bit more free time. So if we had a game, earlier on Saturday, you could kind of have the rest of the Saturday to you. And then, I mean, we still had obligations to do on Sunday. And so you almost have to schedule your social time. And, when you are attached to a brand like UGA, and especially when
Hmm.
you're winning and you're having good games, people do want that social interaction with you. And so guys do like to enjoy themselves and maybe go to the bars and stuff downtown. And so you do that for the duration that you can kind of endure. And from there it's like I need some sleep. At least that's how I felt. um I You could only get so much of that. And I think towards the latter part of my time at UGA, I cut out a lot of that to where I was like, I just need rest. I like to chill, in my apartment or whatnot. um but to your point, yeah, people do want that interaction. And certain guys feed off of that, other guys is exhausting to them. So I think it's gonna depend on each
Yeah.
person. um but your social life is definitely going to suffer if you have a significant other, even interactions with your parents. I can't tell you the amount of times that I'm in practice, so in the middle of practice, and then I finally get back to the locker room and I have like three missed calls from my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm at practice from 3:30 all the way to like 6, 7 o'clock. Like, why are you calling me? And so, those kind of things, people around you have to get adjusted to as well, because you're just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
busy. So that's something that, you just got to work around.
yeah. Your mom's gonna mom though. She gonna call
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
She gonna call you whenever she want to.
Yeah. Regardless
Don't
if
matter
I,
what you're doing. You better
exactly.
answer the phone too. Eric, how do you feel about so we talked about the nil rights, right? So do you think college sports, and this is a question for Eric, because I'm gonna see how he feels about this, because I think I know what Aaron feels about it. So like in terms of pay for play, right? So I guess a good example of this would be, and let me know if you're not familiar, but like DeAndre Ayton, right, when he was at Arizona,
Yeah.
they gave, or
Hmm.
allegedly they said that um money was going from the program to like either him or his mom or something like that.
Mhm.
And this is a similar case with James
Yeah.
White. Well, not similar with James Wiseman because it was like something ridiculous that he got in trouble for. He shouldn't have got in trouble for it.
Mhm.
But like with DeAndre Ayton, it was like $40,000 or something like that to come play at Arizona allegedly. So like,
Yeah.
do you think that that would significantly hurt college sports if they went like full? I don't know, full pro sports. It wouldn't even be pro sports because they're not getting millions of dollars. But do you think that would be bad, or do you think it'd just be like, not so bad?
See, I don't know because I don't know who it's hurting. Like, if anything, it's hurting the smaller programs who can't afford to bring in like a bunch of people. So like the big programs have all the funding and all the money, they could go out and give $30,000, $20,000 to all the like, the big name prospects, right, and then get them to go to their school. It doesn't. I don't think it hurts the NCAA. Maybe in terms of just how stacked the teams are, which they already are pretty stacked as it is because everyone wants to play for the bowl in the bowl games.
Mhm.
But see, I don't know though. I don't think it hurts. I think there's other ways they can go about like paying the athletes, like you said, like paying them for like their name, like their image and likeness, like paying them that way, whether it's through like social media, autographs, their own jerseys, and like with the new NCAA video game coming back, if they incorporate the actual
Oh
players
yeah,
into the
we
game
got
and
to talk
then
about that
give
too.
some compensation to the athletes who are in the game, there are ways they can go about it where, and then a lot of it, like the NCAA isn't losing; they're just trying to be greedy and get something out of it. You know, like they're not losing anything if the
Yeah,
player decides to sell his autograph. Like they're not losing anything because they don't sell autographs as it is. You know, so it's like the NCAA is just like, you're not allowed to make money because we want to make the money. And it's ridiculous.
yeah. Aaron, how do you feel about the new NCAA game supposed to be coming out for football after they like killed it? What was that, like seven
It was
years ago,
it was
something
like
like
in
that?
2014. Hold on, I'm looking it up.
The last one, I think it was what's his name from Michigan on the cover, right?
Denard Robinson.
Yeah, it was Denard Robinson was the last NCAA game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love playing NCAA. Reggie Bush is my favorite college football player of all time. I can't tell you how many games I love playing with them. But I over the years, I'm not gonna say I've developed a disdain, but um, when the NCAA came out with their settlement for including college players into uh, NCAA and all these different types of things, um, it was very fluky of the process to deciding who got included and who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was like a 3-year starter, and somehow my name
Yeah.
got left off the settlement list, and so
Oh
I'm in the
no.
middle of playing a season, so it's like I'm not necessarily keeping up with this, and I don't remember any emails. They sent like maybe like one, snail mail letter to an address, and for some reason, you know, I wasn't on there, and I was supposed to like apply to say why I should be on there, which was absolutely crazy. And so when they actually started giving out settlement checks, I was left out the hat. So I'm like, what's going on with this? And so, which is crazy
Right.
because like I used to have people send me clips all the time to say, look, I just got an interception with Aaron on NCAA. And it's like there are YouTube videos that you can still look up today with me there. And so I didn't understand it, so I tried to get the process resolved, and they weren't really doing it. So NCAA, if you're listening out there, you know, I'd say I don't appreciate the way um, you handle that situation, and you know, I may have a few different choice words for you if we were talking.
Yeah, let's get Mark Emmert on here. We need to get him on here right now. Say, look what you did. No, but that's crazy though. Like I couldn't imagine like you're like you said you're in the middle of a season, so you don't really have the time to like kind of keep up with this because that's like a full blown
Mhm.
process. Like you said, you have to apply for it, right? And you don't have the time. But then you look up and you see, oh, like what's his name is doing a what's it called? I think it was a dynasty, right, or
Mhm.
something like that, where you could like do whatever. And there I am. I'm like, in the Heisman conversation or something on his game,
Mhm.
and I ain't get no money for that,
Nothing.
but whatever.
Nothing at all. And I'm like,
Nothing at all.
we can fix this. It's what's an extra. However, it was like maybe yeah, I think they range from like 3,000 and 5,000, something like whatever. What's an extra check like that to y'all when y'all have like literally billions and billions of dollars for
Yeah.
honestly something that should be a mistake, for the fact that
Yeah.
there's no way you could talk about somebody like me who I've started for the university that has the biggest brand. It's like second, maybe second to like Texas, the biggest brand, second biggest brand in the entire nation. And you're telling me my name got left off the list? Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, at least to me, leaving. I don't know. Throw like I don't know somebody that was on. I'll say Oklahoma player because I was just watching that
Mm.
game. So like Marquise Brown.
Right.
So he's not Baker,
No.
right? Like everybody knows who Baker is. If
Hmm.
you're playing Oklahoma with Baker on the team, like Baker's the quarterback, you know who that
Hmm.
is if you see his number on there. But like Marquise Brown is still pretty well known. I'm sure the UGA fans they knew who you were
Hmm.
in the game, but at the same time, like because you didn't apply, like you didn't, maybe it's one of those things where you need like a players association. So like with the 2K and like
Hmm.
Madden games, like they just have a players association. So like they've already had those agreements,
Hmm.
and I mean there's probably something in the works, like college athletes trying to work this out. But like there's agreements already in stone that say these players will appear in 2K or they'll appear in Madden and they'll cut a check. It'll automatically, you don't have to worry about anything.
Hmm.
For college athletes though, who already don't have enough time, like you mean to tell me you have to apply to be compensated for being in the game? That's
Well,
ridiculous.
that's not even the case because if that would have happened, like when I first walked in as a freshman, when they do make you sign like 1,000 different documents,
Oh
um,
yeah.
I would have been included. But for some reason, they came up with this list. I don't know how they come up with a list, but they came up with a list, and then if you were not included on the list, then you had to basically appeal to say why you should be on the list, and so. That's the
Oh,
situation
okay,
I
okay.
was underneath, and I'm like, one, how did I get off the list, and then where were the notifications so that I could actually appeal to be on the list? And so I don't know.
Yeah. So let's and you mentioned this in our little message that we had. So you wanted to talk about player
Mhm.
evaluations, right? So like does this have to pertain to like the coaching staff or somebody with the program evaluating how you're doing as far as like whether it be a student or on the field, and then they decide can you keep your scholarship, like how does that process go?
Well, I was mainly talking about like the NFL and their evaluations of
Oh, okay.
athletes going to the next level. But when you talk about player evaluations on the collegiate level, everyone should know. I mean, there are some politics involved to where, if a coach spends all this time recruiting a player that they felt was really good coming out of high school, those guys are going to get their opportunities and their chances to kind of show
Hmm.
what they can do, and they'll have a longer leash than somebody else. But that's as a player like myself, when I was a walk on, you know, I'm aware of that, and so I know I can't make as many mistakes as somebody else can. And in order for me to actually, play and contribute to this team, I'm gonna have to be, at the tip top of my game on a lot more consistent basis than this player will have to be. And and I was fine with that, and I knew that, and that honestly motivated me. So I think, you know, regardless of what, how many stars you came in having, like, coaches are going to play the best players. But,
Yeah.
you have to understand that you have to prove that you're the best player. And so that's something that guys have to be aware of so that they don't feel, after a year or, 6 months or so, they feel like they're getting screwed over. But, you knew your circumstances. So, you just got to grind it out and do what you need to get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if you want to talk about the NFL evaluations, we can do that too because I'm interested to hear how that goes. So for those that don't know, you were on two practice squads, right,
Mm,
or just one?
well, I never really made it to a practice squad, so I
Okay.
signed with the
Okay.
Giants as a undrafted a free agent, um which, I mean, the interesting draft stories that happen. Like I said, people tell you certain things and then they don't come to fruition, but that's fine. And so, I signed with the Giants, and then I got injured, and so I signed an injury waiver, and then I was able to get on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their team, their preseason team. So you have a little bit more players in the preseason than you do in that regular season. But I was still hurt when I was on there, and so they ended up cutting me like in
Hmm.
2 days, which was crazy. Like, I was there for all of a weekend, but that was fine. And so, just the thing I just kind of wanted to talk about is the fact that it's like, I think there's a lot of discrepancy about, where a player goes, where a player should go. I think we're seeing it a lot when it comes to Justin Fields this year. When you think about someone like Justin Fields, you know, the whole time, his first, 2, 3 years, they're talking about him versus Trevor Lawrence, who's the best quarterback in the country. And then all of a sudden, now, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
four other QBs have leapfrogged this this man, and and we had shortened seasons, and I can't
Yeah.
comprehend it. So it's like, these NFL teams, where do they get their information from? And then, how much is this information weighted on some of these, I'm not going to call them pundits, but like some of these people out there who put out these mock drafts and these boards and things like that. And
Mel Kiper.
he's a big one, but it's like, you get these I mean, these guys are shooting at, 5-10% clips on, just, I mean, they can't, you ask them who's going to be the top 10 picks, and they may get the first or two right if they're like, these guys are bona fide
Yeah.
superstars. But it's like, other than that, they don't know. And like, person they think is first
They
round
really know.
goes
Yeah.
third round, a person they think is fourth round goes second round. So it's like, these player evaluations are almost ridiculous at this point. And then we just need more information for the actual student athletes, because I do feel like, especially at Georgia, there are a ton of guys that I see that, if given the right opportunity, they would have been, great contributors to a team, but for some reason, there's information out there that is very conflicting. Like I know for me, when I showed up to my pro day, I ran 4.4, which is like a really good time for my
Hmm.
position. And I was confident I was going to run that. I had been running that since I was at college, and then when I went do my pre-draft training, I ran the same thing. I ran it twice, and so I was confident I was going to run that again. Um, but when I talked to these scouts and different people after my pro day, they're like, "Whoa, we didn't think you would run that." Like, the Jets told me like, "Oh, we thought you were gonna run like 4.6," and I'm like 4.6, like who are you getting this information from? Like it just didn't make sense to me. Like I've been running 4.4 since I was, you know, a freshman or sophomore in college. Like, and these are like on laser times, and so I think student athletes do need better voices out there so teams can get accurate information, and ultimately
Yeah.
that'll lead to better draft positions. And I'm biased, so I specifically want all my Georgia guys to go as high as they can. And so I think specifically Georgia probably needs some of that in their program.
Yeah, it seems to me like based on that, on your experience, they're getting all their information from Schefter, from like Mortensen. Who else?
I actually like
What's the other guy's name that's not Mel Kiper?
Todd McShay. Yeah.
McShay.
Yeah.
Yeah, McShay. Yeah. You said you like
Yeah, I actually
Schefter?
like Schefter. I think he does a really good job more of like the reporting than some of the
Yeah,
analysis
yeah.
that some of these other guys get. But I'm like, some of y'all did play, and being a great player is not necessarily the measuring stick of how good you are at evaluating talent, because
Hmm.
depending on who you ask, Michael Jordan is like the greatest basketball player ever, but his draft picks haven't been the best. And so it's like, just because you're really good at playing doesn't mean you're that good at evaluating talent. But for some of these
He
people, I'm
was that
like,
good.
who, in the words of Tony Allen, like who stamped you? Like who decided that you were the person to be able to decipher between these people, and like what are your credentials? And so I question a lot of that, and it's interesting to see, but I hope players specifically on Georgia get more of the benefit of that than the loss that I've seen we've
Yeah,
been getting recently.
yeah. Speaking of Jordan and the Hornets, I really do think that if LaMelo did not fall to them, they would have made a horrible mistake.
Oh
Like
yeah.
somebody like really bad, like awful. Because LaMelo, he's a beast, and me and Eric have been saying that.
Mhm.
Like he's Lonzo, but like 2 inches taller,
Mhm.
shoots better.
Mhm.
Unless they can
I'm
actually
a
shoot.
Lonzo guy, yeah,
Mhm.
but that's beside the point.
Yeah,
But
Malik, you bought the one clip where Lonzo actually shot a three.
Lonzo shoots now. You need to
he
stop
does.
disrespecting him.
But he's got to
He's
shoot more
like
than just a three.
yeah. I mean, no, he had one game where I think he went like 5 for 8 or something like
Mhm.
that. Like legit. He's a shooter now. That's why he's getting looks at free agency. You need to stop disrespecting my boy for real, for real.
Is he gonna come back to the Lakers?
No, I think if he doesn't stay with New Orleans, I think the Bulls were looking at him because they're trying to put a team together. Apparently,
The
um,
Hornets gonna take him,
I
Oh
hope
no,
not because that would
and
be the
and then
worst
they're gonna
thing.
bring in LiAngelo,
Please God no.
and they're
But
gonna
I mean,
hire LeVar as the head coach.
Mm,
Jordan would never do
ever.
that. If he does that, all of it would be
Yeah, he
erased.
should sell the
Like
team
he'd
at
be the
that point.
worst. He'd be worse than Phil Jackson as an
Yeah.
executive at that point, and he's pretty bad.
Yeah, Phil Jackson was
But
ass.
he was really bad. But I think in terms of the voice that the college athlete like they what they need in terms of the step to the next
Hmm.
level. I mean, obviously not you like you said, not everybody has a chance to be able to get to that level, but for the ones that do, um, if you know you're running a 4.4 and that's really important for draft stock, apparently, like the scouts and people in the teams go wild for speed and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. Like your numbers really count. If those numbers are getting misconstrued or scouts come in with like a preconceived notion of what you can do based off what they heard from somebody else or what Mel Kiper said on ESPN, that's ridiculous. So like the I think the schools, probably the onus is on them to sort of say, let's bring somebody in. I don't know, they might have this, but let's bring somebody in that could like be that representative
Hmm.
for our players that have those pro days or something like that. where the correct information does get out, like a designated person that takes down all the numbers. They'll tweet it, they'll share it with the teams, that sort of thing. That probably would be an answer to that situation, I think.
I agree. And then, I think harnessing the power of social media, self promotion has become one of the biggest things, especially like shout out to my guy, Eric Stokes. Like he went down to, House of Athlete with Brandon Marshall's facility. And he ran like 4.25 for his 40. And, that was before his pro day. And then I think he ran 4.25 again or like 4.28, something like that again on his pro day. So it's like, if I would have been more aware and more ahead of the curve of understanding how powerful it is, social media, I could have been in a situation to where when I was doing my pre-draft stuff and I ran 4.4 twice, drop that because I have those videos in my phone. Like drop that video, post the time,
Yeah,
and those are things that teams do pay attention to because any team that's thinking about drafting a player, they're gonna vet your social media accounts. They're gonna make sure you don't have anything too wild on there. And but if they they do see that kind of stuff, they're like, hey, let's take a closer look at that, and then run that time again on pro day. Like, oh, this confirms it instead of saying, oh, this is a shock. And just those different things. Those are the difference makers between somebody going undrafted and getting to the fifth round. We've seen guys shoot up to
yeah,
where they
yeah,
were fifth round talents or something like that. They go to the NFL Combine and they run a 4.3, and all of a sudden they're a second, third round pick. So it's like those kind of things can be difference makers, not just in whether you get drafted or not, but ultimately that's how much money you get paid. Like a second round draft pick is going to get paid a lot more than a
yeah, yeah,
sixth round draft pick, and so you know. And then that extends to even more where I was talking about how, like, someone who's drafted in the second round is going to have a longer leash than somebody who is, undrafted. Like you're going to get more opportunities to fail. You're going to get more
yeah.
opportunities to kind of show what you can do. And so, those are the difference makers between, somebody staying in the league, extra 3-4 years, getting that second contract, as opposed to being out before you get
Hmm.
vested.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about sports in a long time, Aaron. So I want to hear your opinions on some of these things.
Hot
So
takes.
I'm really looking forward to the draft. I think Eric is too. Let's get
This
some of
is
your
my
hot
time to
takes.
shine.
who is who deserves to go first, in your opinion, in the draft this year?
I think Trevor
Do you
Lawrence.
think it should be Trevor
Yeah, I think Trevor
Lawrence?
Lawrence earned that. I think based off his play, playing on the national level, he's been in the Final Four every year, and
Hmm.
even the year that Clemson had, I think Kelly Bryant. Um, you know,
Hmm.
considering what could they have done if Trevor Lawrence was there, and so I think he's earned the right to be the number one quarterback.
So
Yeah.
you don't think that the recent like surfaced comments or whatever about him not having a chip on his shoulder, do you have no like pause for concern about that? Is it's all good for you, or what? How do you feel about what people are saying about him not saying he has a chip on his shoulder?
No, I think it's BS. I think people try to like fit guys into a specific mold and say, "Hey, this is what I want. This is what I need." But you got to understand that guys have different personalities. And so, he's just
Yeah.
coming from positions where he says like he doesn't have the mindset that, "Hey, everyone's gunning for me." Maybe his family circumstances were very different, so he doesn't think like that. But that doesn't try to say that he's not competitive. When you watch his play on the field, there's no way you can say he's not
Yeah.
Yeah.
competitive. And so that's what's going to matter the most, rather than what he thinks everyone else is trying to do to him.
Yeah.
So, and then I think Eric agree. I think we all agree Trevor Lawrence is going
Yeah.
first. But
Yeah.
in terms of what the Aaron is a Falcons fan for context.
I
Used
mean,
to
I
What
be.
should
figured
what
once the
should the
Georgia
used
Falcons
stuff.
used to
do? Oh,
be
used to
used
be.
to
He's
be yeah.
done. He's
Yeah,
done.
I'm out of here.
I'm still there.
Okay.
I'm still there. But what do you think they should do with the fourth pick? Because I've seen a lot of different, like, I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are pretty, not set in stone, but people have a pretty good idea, at least on social media, what they're going to do with those picks. The Falcons are like all over the place. Like they say
Didn't
they're going to trade it,
Yeah, I was say,
trade
didn't they
down,
just come out saying
and
that they're interested in trading it like
yeah,
live
but
this
I
week?
mean, should they though? That's the question. Should they trade it? Should they take a quarterback? Should they
Oh
take
no.
some defense? Do they ride with Matt Ryan? Do they go away from Matt Ryan? Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Like, it's interesting. I mean, you're right. You have Matt Ryan under contract for what, 2 more years, right?
I think,
And,
yeah.
and his dead cap hit is insane. Like, if I'm the Falcons, I'm not taking a quarterback because you're going to end up paying him first round quarterback money, and you're never going to use him because you still have Matt Ryan on your books for 2 more years. Even if you get rid of him, you still have a dead cap hit that's like upwards of $100 million. It's crazy how much they have to pay him the next 2 years. So the way I see it is, I would try to move out of that spot unless you're taking like Kyle Pitts. Like, move out of that spot to like the back half of the top 10 and then take a defensive back. That's what I would do. But
Aaron, what would you do? I need some help because I'm like all over the place. I can't wait for the draft. But
Well, I want to take a step back first to say that if I was the GM, Thomas Dimitrov, you did a great job for what you did do. But if I was the GM, for me personally, I've been calling for the Falcons to kind of, move on from Matt Ryan some years ago. I thought the year that, and oh my gosh, his name now, but the year that Deshaun Watson got drafted, I thought that
oh my
the
god,
Falcons should have, at that point, kind of traded away Matt Ryan, convinced Julio that, first year is going to be a growing pain, but by the second, third year, will be a Super Bowl contending team. And just imagine what the Falcons would have looked like, 2 years ago if they, last year if they had Deshaun Watson, um, who I think is a step up above Matt Ryan. And so that's what I thought they should have did. They should have traded him away, got some more value for him, and then drafted Deshaun Watson, but they didn't do it. Then I said
yeah,
you also had the chance to do it again when Joey B came out. So I'm like, you still got a chance to do it with Joey B, and they still didn't do it. But I mean, like you said, that dead cap is crazy, and so it's like, I think at this point there's no way to either cut or trade him without suffering all that money. So
yeah,
um, if you think Kyle Pitts is generational, um, you could go with him just because I think he'd probably be the best player available. But for me, we've seen Matt Ryan with a ton of weapons around him, and for
yeah,
some reason
yeah.
they still haven't been able to get it done. Like, they've had prolific players around them and still not able to get it done. So I think with Eric saying, trading back and getting, solidifying your defense, I think that might get a little bit more value for you, unless you just think that Kyle Pitts is a
Mhm.
generational talent, which he very well might be. And so um, those are decisions you have to make. But I would personally probably try to trade back, get a little bit more draft capital, or maybe get another playmaker with a draft pick so that I
Mm.
can shear up the defensive side, because I hear a lot of people complain about you know
Yeah,
Matt Ryan needs a defense. That's why they're not winning. But it's like you load him up on offense, and in the regular season he looks amazing, but in the postseason you only score like 17 points on the
yeah.
Eagles versus Nick Foles. Like, come on.
He's upset. He's very upset. So two hot takes for me, and this is one regarding Burrow and then another regarding the Falcons. Well, the Falcons one's not really a hot take, but one, I think Joe Burrow. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is good, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is like far and away the best college player I've ever seen.
Hmm.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
in terms of like statistical, I mean,
I mean, he
that's
set like every record, didn't he?
yeah, that's like with Reggie Bush. That's with like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. He said Reggie Bush was his favorite player, but I'm not saying I like Joe Burrow better than Reggie
Hmm.
Bush. I'm just saying Joe Burrow like literally set the world on fire at LSU. That's all I'm saying.
But what made that so cool is because no one saw it coming. Like if
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence was to do what Joe Burrow did, people would have expected it.
Hmm.
I mean, they still would have been praising him for setting all these records, but they wouldn't have been like with Joe Burrow. It was like, holy fuck, who the hell is this guy coming out of nowhere? Transfer from Ohio State to LSU, and the year before he like was an okay quarterback, with
Right.
LSU, and now he's like the best quarterback in the country, setting all these fucking records. Crazy.
Yeah.
And now he's in the Browns
And then the
division.
one with the Falcons
Great.
is, well, I mean, so actually, let me ask that. Aaron, are the Browns for real? They got Clowney now be careful what you say because Eric might get upset. But are they for real?
I got my own
I,
opinions on this, so
so I think they were for real starting last year when they made the decision. Um, when they actually got it together last year, I think they became a for real team. I think one of the best things they could have done was draft Nick Chubb. I think for me, I don't. Sometimes I
my
get a
favorite
little,
player.
yeah. I sometimes I get crucified for my takes, and then they
Okay.
come true. And then now, I just sit back and chuckle because for me, I played with Nick, and so I'm a little biased, but I'm always gonna keep it real. And I played with Nick for however many years. It was like 3 years. And I played against Saquon. Granted he was a freshman when I played against him. I was a sophomore. And then I, joined him in New York Giants for the brief time I had there. And it's like to me, Nick was a better running back. And so I'm like, for them to get Baker Mayfield but still get Nick Chubb in the beginning of the second round. I think they knocked it out of park with doing that,
Yeah,
and that set them up.
they stole
Yeah,
that.
that set them up a lot better than if they would have Saquon now, and who knows who their quarterback would actually be. And so, um, I think the Browns are finally for real. I hope they don't prove me wrong because like a ton of us, the
Yeah, me
Browns the
too.
Browns have the Browns have not been good since I can ever remember.
Like Eric says, the Browns gonna Browns. I
Hey,
remember
we don't
last
say that
season.
anymore.
No, not anymore, not anymore. I remember last season. It would be like every other Sunday. I'd say the Browns are gonna win this
Mhm.
game, and Eric would be like, "No,
Never
they're
had
not."
faith.
And then it was the game against Tennessee. I was like, Eric, they're gonna win this
Mhm.
game. Tennessee was, I mean, they were good the entire
They
Yeah.
were.
season,
I
but they
think
were
both
good.
teams were 8-3.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I said, Eric, they're gonna win this game. And he's like, no, they're not. I said, watch, they're gonna win. And then they scored like what 30 something
Mhm.
first half points or
35 in
something
the
like
first
that.
half.
I said, look, I'm telling you, like the Browns, I still think the Browns probably outside of the Bills had the best chance to beat the Chiefs, and then Tampa Bay won. But let's not talk about the Super Bowl because that to me doesn't count because they had like no
That
O
was so
line.
gross.
But the Browns like
The
really
Browns should
gave
have been
Kansas
there.
City a game. They really did.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The Browns shouldn't have even been in that game. The Browns shouldn't even. They shouldn't have even been. I mean, they should have been in that game, but they shouldn't have been that close.
Mhm.
Like they had no right to be that close. The
But they
Chiefs, I
were
don't know
though.
what happened. Like Patrick Holmes got hurt, but like they left so many points on the on
Mhm.
the field. Like they missed like 2 field goals, and they settled for a field goal at the end of the half instead of getting the touchdown, and they missed it. So and they missed an extra point. So they left like 7 to 10 points on the field. So yeah, the score was closer than you know I think ever anyone thought.
The game would indicate.
You know, but hey, it was still fun to watch. Still
Fair.
fun.
That's
Browns
fair.
playing significant football.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, playoff football. Like, who would have thought? And then also, I told him that they would beat Pittsburgh, and he was like, "No, they won't." And then look what
I didn't
happened.
think they would.
They beat them.
I didn't even start
I
watching the
thought they
game
would.
until so I got home late that night. I don't remember where I was, but Adam texted me like as the game started and said, "Yeah, good, GG's, you guys won." And I went, "The game just started. What do you mean?" And then of course I turned it on, and when I turned it on, we're up 14-0, and I was like, "What the fuck
Mhm.
happened?" And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But
Yeah,
yeah,
Pittsburgh was really bad. Like, yeah.
that was awful.
Aaron, what about basketball? So have you been keeping up with the buyout and the National Buyout Association? No.
Yeah, I mean to be honest, I probably watch a little bit more basketball than I do football. Like football, I'm always watching all the playoffs, but I probably watch overall basketball more. But I've been keeping up with it. I'm a Hawks fan, so we're 4 seed right now. Nate McMillan has us rocking, so I'm interested to see where we'll go. I'm obviously a realist, so we're not gonna beat Brooklyn. Nobody's gonna beat Brooklyn, but um, I'm a Hawks fan, and I've been paying attention to kind of everything that's been going on in the NBA.
Okay, so I mean, you think nobody would be Brooklyn, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, I kind of think that too. I think it depends on how healthy they are.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like, I also think it depends on if Kyrie wants to take his pay time off or not.
Hmm.
That's another thing because he's like, I mean, he has legit reasons, but like every other week, he's like, yeah, I'm not playing.
The thing is, he
Sorry.
doesn't need to play though. That's the thing. They're still going to win.
Right.
But not if James Harden is hurt and KD's also hurt. They kind
Well,
of
if they're
need Kyrie at
hurt,
that
yeah,
point. But I
but
mean,
like, it's so hard though. In a
they'll
7-game series, it's just I don't see any team beating
yeah,
them.
yeah. The Lakers are the only team that could beat them.
I don't even
That's
think they're
because
going
they
to
have
beat
the
them.
bigs. You think the Nets are going to beat the Lakers convincingly if
Yeah,
they're healthy?
like yes, I don't think it's going to be close.
Well,
Which
didn't
is really sad because like I'm fine with there being big teams and stuff. You know, there's always going to be big teams, especially when you have like guys like LeBron James in the league. Everyone's going to want to team up to beat him. You saw last year there wasn't a big team last year. There was a bunch of duos, and LeBron and AD sort of like just wiped the floor with everybody. So, but like when you have a team that has 3 top 10 players on it, it's just like fuck, this isn't even like fair anymore.
Not
You could even argue top
10,
5. You
Hall
can
of
have,
Famers.
I'd say top 10, yeah.
The 3 Hall of Famers, 3 like bona fide Hall of Famers on the same team.
And they have
Like,
like
not
their
even just top
reserves,
10.
and their reserves are like potential Hall of Famers. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
Who?
crazy.
Wait, hold on. That was a hot take. Who's a potential Hall of Famer on the bench?
Does Blake Griffin come off the bench, or does he start?
Yes, but is he a Hall of Famer?
Probably, maybe.
No.
I'd say
no.
there's like some things I've seen, and it's like potential odds. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing ever. You know, potential odds of making the Hall of Fame. But I was like, you look at Blake Griffin in like Lob City and stuff. It's like that's pretty iconic. You know, those like how long was he in the Clippers for? Like, was he drafted in 2012?
For a
So
while.
like he's been in the league for like 9-10 years now. So like the time there was pretty iconic, and they were always really good with him, you know. And it's kind of like the people making the same points for like Julian Edelman. Like, is he Hall of Famer? Like, he's made some really good catches and plays in the playoffs, but like, is he a Hall of Famer? Not really. But people make the claim that
He'll
he
be in
could
the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, definitely, because he's made
He'll be in the
countless
Patriots
plays
Hall of
for the
Fame.
Patriots.
But yeah, he might not make the. Yeah,
But yeah,
he might not make that.
Listening to all these like reporters talk about Edelman making the Hall of Fame has made me laugh.
Who said that though? Which reporter?
I think Colin Cowherd was saying that, like, that Edelman should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't like him anyway. He hates the Browns, so I don't like him anyway. But and there was another guy, I forget who it was. Might have been someone on Pat McAfee's show that thought Edelman was good.
Yeah. When Baker went on Cowherd's show and was like, dude,
that was funny.
New one. I was like, thank you, Baker. Somebody finally.
He's like, yeah. Police report.
Want to say
police video off my draft board. He's like, okay, you're not drafting me, so it doesn't matter what you think. Because you don't even know the story.
I remember
like,
that.
Yeah,
too.
you have a police video. You have a police video. You're off my draft board. And I was like, dude, shut up. Like a broken record.
Yeah.
And then after, the funniest thing.
I used to.
The funniest thing for me was after Baker's first year, and we lost to the Ravens. We were already out of the playoffs, the playoff contention here, but we lost to the Ravens because Baker threw a pick on the last play, and Colin Cowherd was like ripping Baker, doing like, "Oh, you guys got blown out by the Ravens, and you suck or whatever. You couldn't beat them and stuff." And I was like, I think Baker had 3 touchdowns that game. I think it was a 2-point game. And we could have kicked a 58-yard field goal, but we had a rookie kicker who hasn't made anything past 48 yards all year. And I was like, he was just trying to get in the field goal range. And the Ravens defense is always really good. So it's like, but this is when they had like Matt Judon as well on that. Matt Judon, and they had Mosley on the team as at linebacker. So it's like they sent like 8 people on 3 straight plays against the Browns O-line that was okay. So like, yeah, it's a rookie quarterback. What do you want him to do? Like, he threw a good ball to Jarvis Landry like the play prior, but he dropped it. It's like there's nothing more you can ask him to do. And I mean, the only reason it was picked is because it was tipped at the line. It's like, that's whatever. That got me heated just because I was like, you didn't even watch the game. You just said we got blown out. We lost by 2. You know? It's like, annoyed me.
Cowherd just be saying.
He's so annoying, dude. I hate him so much,
and it's kind of ridiculous.
He said, I watched this thing yesterday, and I shouldn't have.
I look at his stuff. Yeah, I look at his stuff just to like when I want to get upset. Like I'll look at Cowherd.
Yeah. Well, yesterday because Jadeveon signed yesterday, right? Was Wednesday or 2 days ago. So I watched
Yeah, yeah.
Howard's
It was
video
yesterday.
on that, and he
Or
was like,
yeah.
"The Browns are a Super Bowl team, and there's only two things that can stop them from being a Super Bowl team: injuries, which that applies to everybody, and then Baker Mayfield." And I was like, why?
Oh my
Why does it always
god.
come back to Baker? He's not bad. He's not. He's not a top 10. He's like a fringe top 10, like 11 to 15. Like I'll put him anywhere in that list, and I'll say that's fine. But like he's a good quarterback, and that just says a lot about the league. Is a lot of the quarterbacks in the league are pretty good now. A lot of the young
Yeah.
guys coming in makes
Yeah.
a significant difference. Like look at Herbert and Burrow. Like even though Burrow only played like half the year, he did really well behind an
Mhm.
awful O line.
Hmm.
He still did pretty well.
Yeah, he's gonna be a beast.
Yeah, I'm not excited about that.
Aaron, one more question before I well, you're not excited, but I am. As a neutral and as somebody that doesn't care about the division that you're in, I'm excited to see it. But to go back to basketball, so I know you're a Kobe guy,
Mhm.
right? Can you explain why you're a Kobe guy? Because sometimes like I tell people Kobe's my favorite
Mhm.
player, right? And then like the stats people will be like, why? Like he has the most missed shots of like anybody ever. And then like the other players or not players, the other people, the other critics would be like, well, I mean, he didn't pass the ball, like something like nonsense like
Mhm.
that, right? But sometimes I can't explain as much as I or as good as I would want to why I'm a Kobe
Mhm.
guy. So maybe you could do a better job. Can you explain?
Yeah, one, Kobe's my favorite player. It was honestly interesting how he became my favorite player. I have a Tracy McGrady jersey that I used to wear in 8th grade, and it still can't fit me now. So that just lets you know how times have changed. But yeah, I used to see like Kobe and Tracy go, at it back and forth, and eventually I just developed, a fandom from Kobe as well. And especially when Tracy McGrady went out with injuries, I'm like, hey, Kobe's my favorite player now. And so for me, I think the analytics are not on the side of somebody like Kobe. But if you, even though his analytics are still great, but they're just not as good when it comes to you compare them to like the only people that are in the conversation as being better than him, like the LeBron James, Magic Johnson. But for me, I do consider, from what I've seen, Michael Jordan's probably the best player ever. I would have Kobe 2 and LeBron number 3. And I think it's because I mean you listen to the player testimonies. I mean Kobe's probably one of the most feared people to ever play the game, and coming in the league he was already like that, and so he talks about the story where someone's like, "Yo, you're guarding Michael Jordan tonight. Don't look him in the eye." And he was like, "What?" Like tell him don't look me in the eye, and so I just love that about Kobe. But when you look at his game on the court, he could score on all three levels. He's like one of the most athletic guys we've ever seen. Um, it shouldn't even have to discuss how clutch he was with situations. He was the ultimate team guy, and so it's like when people try to say, "Oh, Kobe didn't pass the ball. Kobe didn't pass the ball." It's a lie. You can look up the stats. Kobe led his team in assists every year, but that's a product of the system they ran with the triangle system, to where you're not going to have one person be ball dominant and distribute the final pass before a shot. And so you look at his points per game, his assists, his rebound. Like Kobe was one of the few players I feel like who didn't necessarily care about what the stats say. So like, yeah, he has the most missed shots, but um, he's never going to be scared to take those shots. And I think that puts pressure on the other teams. So even if he's not it's the same thing like Steph Curry. When Steph Curry is having an off night, their team can still win because people are
Yeah.
so scared of what he could do. So just, though Kobe may not throw 10 assists a game, other guys are getting wide open looks because Kobe draws so much attention. And so when you look at that, you look at, how many points he was able to do, the feats he was able to do, scoring 50 plus points for like 4 games in a row, like 60 points, 62 points to 3 quarters, 81 points, in a whole game. Like it's like his resume speaks for itself. And then you compound that on what players actually think about him and what players say about him. It's like You know what I'm saying? I don't see how you don't have Kobe in your top three or whatnot. Like, I've heard people say like, oh, LeBron. And it's like, you can't really make a huge argument against that because, I think those are kind of interchangeable. But at the same time, it's like, there's only a very small names that you should, even debate about when it comes to Kobe Bryant.
Thank you, Aaron, because I want to say all that, but sometimes I can't articulate, especially when I'm debating with Eric and my uncle.
I
It's
don't
usually
know. No,
like,
don't let
no,
me in
okay,
there.
okay, 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 okay. My uncle, not Eric, because Eric is
Hmm.
reasonable, right? My uncle, he'll just be
Yeah,
like,
I think the same way as you, Aaron.
Hmm.
It's like they're interchangeable. You can think whatever you want to think. It's just who you've been watching, really. And I'm from Ohio,
Hmm.
so obviously grew up watching LeBron. I didn't really like him going to the Miami Heat, but he came back and won us a rings. Like
Hmm.
that goes a long way for me and my rankings of him.
Okay.
But then there's like people who grew up
didn't
like our
didn't you?
parents and stuff who like watch Jordan, so they're like all like
Hmm.
Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. And now you got the new generation coming up, and it's like they got LeBron and Kevin Durant and all those like
Hmm.
the new guys who are
Hmm.
just taking the league by storm. Why are you shaking your head?
Kevin Durant can never be the greatest of all
No,
time.
I don't think so either. No,
Kevin, yeah, okay, okay, okay. It's just like
I was just making a point.
I don't get KD. Like we used to love KD. Do y'all were like remember when he was winning MVPs with OKC?
2014.
Like yeah, like we used to go to bat for KD, but now it's
Yeah,
just like
I think going to the
mm,
Warriors like really put him in a negative light. Well, I didn't like that move. I hated that move so much because it ruined basketball for 4 years, for me at least. I just couldn't watch basketball anymore because it wasn't even, you already knew who was going to win, and even like last year, you had a suspicion the Lakers would win it all, but like there was only two. It was just two of them, and then a bunch of like decent
Hmm.
role players. It was two stars, a bunch of role
decent role
players,
players.
but that
Yeah,
was a lot of teams had that. So it was a fun year.
yeah.
This year was fun to start, and then when the Brooklyn Nets got like everybody and their mothers on the team, it kind of did the same thing. It's kind of ruined it.
Yeah, I remember when they traded for James Harden, and we only have a little bit of time left, Aaron. I'm gonna take up all your
Hmm.
time this afternoon, but um, when the Nets traded for James Harden, and I saw the haul that Houston got, I said there is no way that Houston's not going to be like the best team in the league, most likely in like 5 years, maybe even 4 years. They got so many picks, like so
What about
many
the
like
Thunder,
first
Malik?
round picks. The Thunder too.
The Thunder
The
are going to
Thunder
be
have so
crazy.
many first round
I
picks.
They came out with a thing, and I think it said over the next like 3 years they have like 30 picks or something like that, or 20
Hmm.
high 20
Hmm.
picks. It's crazy.
And half of it they got for Paul George,
The
who's good. He's
And
still
Russell
good,
Westbrook,
but
they got like another
yeah,
two for Russell Westbrook, and then they got another one for
same
Danny
team.
Green. They shipped Danny Green, and and Chris Paul. They ship everybody. They got a first rounder for Danny Green. Who the fuck would have given a
Yeah,
first rounder for Danny Green?
yeah. The only thing I'll say
that's
about that is
wild.
at the end of the day, players get the job done. And
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
honestly, it's the established players. Like you look at the teams that won all the all the NBA championships. If you don't have a top five
hmm
player on your team, like you're not going to win it all. And so, OKC they do
yeah,
have all those picks, but obviously, you're gonna have to spend those and trade those for, maybe
mm,
Yeah, yeah.
a superstar caliber type player. So it'll be interesting to see what they
yeah,
do with them.
yeah. A
Or
good
maybe they could get three of them.
Could
I
be.
was a good testament to that is the Celtics. Like, think about all the talent the Celtics have
Hmm.
had. Then they have all this draft capital too. They've
Hmm.
had all that draft capital from the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trades to Brooklyn, and they didn't use it
Yeah.
right. I mean, they drafted good players, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, but you think about what those picks they could have traded and
They're only
gotten.
like
Like,
500.
I know, but you think
The
about
Celtics
who.
are actually like really bad.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
I'm about to
Is you
look up
think
their
about if they
record.
would have traded those
Yeah, yeah.
picks that would have gotten them that got them like Jalen Brown, or I wouldn't have probably traded the Jason Tatum pick. That was a pretty good pick. But like if you trade
Hmm.
one of those two of those picks for a superstar to put with Jason Tatum, you think they're probably in the top of the Eastern Conference or up there in the top of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah,
but they
they've been
decided to
up
hold
there.
on to their
Yeah,
picks.
they're 30. They're 30 and 26 right now. But a lot of times they have like a real issue winning games. Like it comes down to
Hmm.
Jason Tatum being
Mm-hmm.
Jason Tatum for them to win. Like they never
Yeah.
blow people out or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. They're struggling right now.
Then the Cavs
But
suck
Eric, do
ass.
you have any other? Well, we're not gonna talk about Cavs right now.
I
They
don't
don't
care.
deserve it. They don't deserve our time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eric, do you have any other questions for Aaron while we have him?
I don't
Like I
think
said,
so. I think
no, you're
I think
good.
you did a good job.
I think people will find this pretty informative. It's not every day people get to talk to somebody with the college career that Aaron has had. So
Hmm.
hopefully people get something out of this. And if they had a prior opinion about the NCAA controlling the lives of college athletes, then hopefully after this they don't. So I guess that's the ultimate goal is to get people to talk about it and be more aware. I suppose. Aaron, do you have any last words? You want to plug your socials or anything like that? Your Twitch, anything?
Nah, I don't Twitch anymore. I get on socials, but I'm not huge on it, so I don't really plug that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. We cover a lot. I think there's even more to uncover. So if you guys are willing to, I'd love to come back on the podcast at a different time. But no, I love what you guys are doing, and I think there's a bunch of sports topics. There's endless sports topics to talk about. So as long as you guys are killing it, I love to hear it.
Okay, cool. How about this? So I'm gonna do another hot take. Well, that's not a hot take. It's just a what if. If the Lakers somehow beat
Hmm.
the Nets, if the Nets are healthy
Hmm.
and the Lakers beat them, we need to have another GOAT podcast. We had one already,
Hmm.
We
Aaron.
got to bring your uncle
Hmm.
back on
We
too.
had it. Yeah, it'll be me and Aaron. We're gonna forget Fred because Fred's useless. It'll be it'll be me and Aaron against you and my uncle. Who's cooler?
I'm
If they beat the Nets when the Nets are
I already.
healthy,
Well, the thing is, I'm fine doing that, but like, I'm your uncle's just gonna be the one talking.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna be like
he's
agreeing.
gonna he's gonna hear this and be like, "What are y'all talking about? I
Yeah.
don't talk the whole time."
So
Yeah,
it's
whatever.
well, it's like if he does win, my opinions won't change. It's not like well,
Yeah.
but I would still say it's still interchangeable. Like
Hmm.
you know, it would just be another like more ammunition for the LeBron supporters who are like, yeah, LeBron's the
Hmm.
best of all time. He
Yeah.
beat the 73-9 Warriors, and now he beat the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Harden, and Kyrie, and like all those other
Hmm.
players. Like, yeah, it's just another piece to his like legacy.
Yeah. That's true. But we're still gonna do it though.
Yeah, it'll
So
be funny.
Aaron, if you're willing to come back on, we love to have you for that one because that would be a good one. If you're willing, we'll figure out the details. We'll schedule all that. Like it's fine.
Sounds good.
I'll
I
let
will
you
be
know.
here.
Yeah. Well then, that's great. Then this was a good one. Eric, you got the outro, so I'll let you
Yeah.
do your magic.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. It was a pleasure to have you on, Aaron. Give a lot of insight to the life of a college athlete, and especially like a big time college athlete. Like Division I football. It's pretty huge, and we're hoping that with the new like NCAA game and stuff, that the players can somehow get paid to be in the game. I don't know what they are thinking about doing for that, but hopefully they can come to terms so like
Hmm.
people can enjoy that game again, and the college athletes can make money off of their own brand in the near future. I don't know what episode we're gonna do next. Maybe we'll do like a draft one, Malik, since that's coming up in the next 2 weeks. We could do a NFL
Yeah.
draft
Yeah.
episode.
I'd be good for that.
We could do a draft special. But until then, thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.